But let's get on to the match preview. And like I keep reiterating, what a massive game this is. It's always a big game when Arsenal come to town, but now a title's on the line for Arsenal. It's time for Spurs to put their money where their mouth is and end this title hopes for Arsenal. It's just like, it's that fixture, isn't it, that you just look forward to at the start of every season.
Doesn't sound like anyone's looking forward to it this time.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it. But for one, I am looking forward to it. And I think a draw or a win is a great result for us in terms of trying to end their hopes. You're looking at the way Man City are playing right now, and they're in like full end of season Man City mode, aren't they? They're just battering away everyone. So I think if Arsenal drop points in one of their last 4 games this season, I do think that's their title hopes dead.
Well, at the moment, Man City 1 point behind with a game in hand. That game in hand is Spurs away, so not an easy game, and it's a fixture they have historically struggled. So not only if Arsenal win, not only are they giving themselves a good chance of the title, but also they're relying on us to help them again against Man City later in the season, which is quite a funny situation to be in. So it's a double-edged sword. If Spurs lose this game, they're then going to have. They are going to try and win the game against City, whether fans like it or not. Andrew's going to try and win that game. So from a fan's point of view, if we don't get any points in this one, there's always a chance we could gift Arsenal the title later down the line, which is not a situation we want to be in at all. So. That's why it's doubly as important that we do go and get something out of this game and make sure that Arsenal's title charge is derailed. I do think Arsenal do approach these bigger games this season in a different kind of way, I believe. You saw earlier in the season, a few weeks ago, against Man City, they approached it in a different way. They didn't maybe play the way they would have done it last season or 2 seasons ago, where they just stuck to their game plan. They played how they usually do, kind of just going at them and leave themselves exposed and end up losing. They decide in these bigger games now, we're going to be a bit more pragmatic, we're going to be a bit smarter, and we're going to approach the game this way. But as much as, yes, that did get them a draw against Man City, a draw is not good enough in this game for them. They need a win. So whether they approach the game in the same way, I wonder, because they can't afford to go to draw this game. They can't afford to sit there at the end of the game thinking, could we have done more to go for the win? And maybe against Man City, they could have felt that way because there's a lot of games to go and it's more important they don't lose than win. But it's not the same in this game. And the fact of the matter is, they haven't won an away game against a top 6 team this season. Now, whether that be because of that different approach they take, or whether that be it's because these are tougher games and they're not quite at the level where they can win these games yet, remains to be seen. But it's going to be interesting to see the kind of approach Arsenal do go into in this game, because I feel like if they go into that pragmatic style, I think that probably doesn't suit us, to be honest. But as well, if you allow us to dominate the ball, allow us to play our football, and all of a sudden maybe we can find those moments where we do hurt them.
Yeah, I think yes and no. I mean, we do find it hard to break down these teams that just sit in their kind of shape and make it really difficult for us. And it will also give them opportunities on the counter-attack. And we all know the players that they do have that they can hurt us. Bukayo Saka, Trossard or Martinelli, whichever one plays. They've got the players with the space and the speed that can get in behind. So I think either way is a massive cause for concern. I think for me, I would prefer them to come out a bit more and to attack us and to really, and then we can find those spaces more in behind instead of trying to just like play that shoehorn football as we do when teams are sitting in a low block or a mid block against us. So I think I'd prefer them to come out a bit more and to try and go and win the game. If they do sit back and play like they did against Man City, I do fear for us. I really do.
Yeah, if they're going to play like that, then obviously Richarlison is going to be the better option to start, isn't it? Because he's going to be the one more likely to make something happen inside the penalty area with defenders, defending like they do, rather than someone like a Son. If they do come at us, then Son is the perfect kind of guy in a kind of, if we're playing on transition a lot and trying to get the ball forward quickly into space, then Son's the guy you need in those positions. So it's an interesting one. How they play is going to dictate what our best lineup should be, and we don't know that until the game starts. So it's an interesting dilemma for Ange Postecoglou to overcome in this game, how we approach it and what kind of lineup we go with. If they sit back, yeah, maybe it could pay off, but then again, they have struggled to get wins this season when they've played that approach. As much as they've not been they've not lost. They have struggled to get wins. So will that happen again in this game? And whether you like or not, Spurs are a top five team. I know we've taken some bad defeats this season, but we're at home. We've won 8 out of the last 9. We haven't lost at home. We've lost 1 game at home this year, haven't we? Because we lost to Wolves.
Yeah.
And before the Wolves game, our last loss, I think, was West Ham at home.
It was in that run, Villa, West Ham, and Chelsea.
So it was the West Ham before that. So we've lost 1 home game since the West Ham game.
Yeah.
So we are a tough team to play against at home. We win a lot of games. We react to the crowd's energy a lot. The crowd get behind us. So it's going to be a very difficult game for Arsenal, and we're going to really see what their mentality is all about in this game, with how they approach it, whether they can overcome that atmosphere. Obviously, last year they beat us 2-0 at the Tottenham Stadium. It was a very disappointing day, and it was a disappointing performance from Spurs. We didn't ever lay a glove on them. But with the bravery we know we're going to show under Ange Postecoglou, well, I know we got the quality to play football against anyone when we're on our game. And we just got to hope we're on our game in this one.
Yeah, and I'm looking at Arsenal, and I know they had a really impressive victory last time out against Chelsea. But there has been a string of performances and a string of results where I don't think they've actually looked that convincing. You know, the 2 legs against Bayern, I think Bayern were clearly the better side against them. You're looking at the game against Aston Villa. Yeah, they had a few chances in the first half, but I thought Villa well deserved that 3 points in a really important game at the Emirates as well. And then that Wolves game, I just felt like, yeah, Wolves were hampered massively, but I felt like if Wolves did have a few of their attacking players like the Cunhas, a fully fit Hwang playing, they could have hurt them that day. So there are kind of chinks in their armoury at the moment. Don't you agree?
Yes, the problem is they've just won 5-0 against Chelsea, so have those chinks been overcome? Like in that, well, it was hard to say. What I would say about that Chelsea game is I was watching a bit of it, and and in the first half, as much as Arsenal had chances, Chelsea could definitely have gone into that half-time level. Chelsea did have quite a few chances in that first half to get on the score sheet. If you look at the the stats in that first half, very even. And even though Petrovic was the busier keeper, Chelsea as well had quite a few chances in that first half. So it could have easily been level. But the problem is they didn't go in level, and then Arsenal completely destroyed them in the second half. So it's hard to say whether they've overcome that based off just that performance against a Chelsea team who had to play a kid at right back as well, no Cole Palmer. So a lot of instances in their favour. I definitely think in the games before that, they definitely didn't seem at their best, for sure. The Wolves game, they could have easily been losing at half-time. They ended up getting a goal on the stroke of half-time and leading. And, you know, with Wolves not having any attackers on the pitch, once you get in the lead, it was going to be very difficult for Wolves to overcome that situation. And then the Villa game, deservedly lost. Bayern, they could have easily lost that first leg, and they did lose the second leg and ended up deservedly going out, disappointingly so.
Depends which way you look at it.
Huh?
Depends which way you're looking at it.
Why?
Because I wouldn't say it was disappointing. I was very happy.
Oh, sorry. No, yeah, disappointing for Arsenal, not disappointing for us, for sure. But deservedly going out to Bayern Munich. So considering the form they were on before that, it seemed as though they were scoring lots of goals. They were taking teams that scored, winning 4-5-0 against the likes of Palace and Burnley and Sheffield United and New West Ham, were scoring lots of goals. So they looked at imperious form, but as soon as they hit some quality teams, all of a sudden it wasn't quite the same. So whether Tottenham look at that and think, look, it's when they play good teams, they've struggled a lot more, and they are much more capable of dropping points. And that's something to look at. Yeah, especially away from home.
No, absolutely. And I think, well, you look at their away from home form, they haven't conceded a goal in their last 6 away games, which is absolutely crazy. The record is 7 in a row. So if they do shut us out this weekend, that is equal to the record. But what I want to say about that last...
Porto away, though, as well.
It's true. Yeah, it's true. I mean, look, Arsenal are like a 3-pin plug, aren't they? They don't work in Europe. They only work in England. But I think that going back to what you were saying about the North London derby last season, when they were more than worth their 2-0 victory, could have been even more. Like you said, we didn't lay a glove on them. What I was really disappointed about that game is that the fans lost hope. And, 2 years ago when we did play them, we beat them 3-0. a massive part of that game was the fans and the atmosphere that the fans were creating. And as Gary Neville said, you know, absolutely bodied, or I can't remember the actual term he used that day, but he said the brutalised, that was it. They brutalised the Arsenal team. And I want to see that again, because when Spurs fans have that kind of atmosphere, when that stadium is rocking, it makes it extremely, extremely hard for the away team to come and play their football, especially this Arsenal team, where we see that when they're up against it, when the pressure is really on, can they actually do it? Can they do it in the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium when we've got 60,000 fans making it such a hostile atmosphere, where they just can't, every time they get the ball, boo. Spurs fans, whenever Spurs players get the ball, you're cheering, you're singing songs at the top of your lungs. I want to see every Spurs fan coming into this game with the mentality that we can win, and I want to see every Spurs fan leave that stadium with absolutely no voice whatsoever. Even if we go 1-0 down, because Spurs fans do have a bit of a knack, and when we go 1-0 down, they get a bit apprehensive, they're quieting down. But even if we go 1-0 down in this stadium, we can't let that get to us, and we need to carry on cheering on the team right until the very end. And I think that can be a really important aspect in this game.
Definitely. The fans are very important, especially when it comes to derbies. We've seen how the players can feed off the fans' energy countless amount of times in this kind of game so often. How many times we've gotten a result when we've had we were the far inferior team, because the players, just the fans just get the players up for it, and they feed off that energy, and they put in those challenges, they make those extra runs, and Spurs got to do that. And there's no excuse as well with 2 weeks off we've had. I know you could argue that Spurs go into this game cold, and you know, maybe they need a game to warm up. Maybe having this 2 week break can work against you, but I don't want any excuses from this Spurs team about having 2 weeks off and that being a bad thing, because we should have energy in our legs. We should be able to outrun this Arsenal team. Arsenal have been the ones playing 4 games in the last 2 weeks, and so we've got to be able to have those energy levels to really take the game to them, make sure we're swarming over them, make sure we're not giving them an inch. And I know Ange Postecoglou is going to play the way he wants to, which is high pressing, which is getting in their faces, making sure they don't have time on the ball. Now Arsenal are a good enough team to overcome that. We just got to make sure we outlast them, we outrun them. And with 2 weeks off, there's no excuses why not to. And if we do that, that will get the crowd up for it. That'll get everyone on side, and hopefully they'll feed into each other, and it can be a great day.
Yeah, and we all know Ange Postecoglou, you know, a lot of players have said it. Sonny has said it, Maddison has said it, Basuma has said it, how good of a motivator he is. And he'll play on that fact, won't he? He'll play on it about how important this is to the fans to go and win this game, to go and end their title hopes. Yes, Ange probably won't care himself maybe that they're in a title race, because he wants to be there himself. He's not really interested in top 4. He said that before, and it is all about kind of ending their title hopes this weekend. And I don't think Ange will use that as the motivation, but he'll use about what the fans' mentality and how the fans care about this fixture going into it. But look, let's look at the form going into this game. And in terms of the form, we've got Arsenal obviously on the better form coming to it. But having said that, only both teams have won 2 games in the last 5. Arsenal, we know, are a very good defensive side, have the best defence in the league. Raya, I think, is one. Everton conceding 1 goal away from winning the Golden Glove this year. So how do we get at this Arsenal defence?
Oh, it's very difficult. It's the hardest defence to get at because Saliba and Gabriel are so fast, aggressive and strong. When they squeeze you, and when you're trying to get in behind them, they're very aggressive, and they've got so much physicality. They're hard to get past. Ben White, because he's played a lot of his career at centre back, he's very comfortable in the defensive kind of side of the game. He's quite good aerially as well. The big element where they're usually at their most vulnerable is on the left side of their defence. Usually when Zinchenko is playing, they're definitely vulnerable on that side. But recently they've been playing Kiwior and Tomiyasu on that side. And I think Kiwior recently has had some struggles. I believe he's had those struggles because he's a natural centre back. He's actually not that comfortable in the wide areas. The difference between him and Ben White is Ben White has spent time in midfield, and he's always been a bit of a ball playing centre back, so he's a lot more comfortable there. Whereas Kiwior, I don't believe that that's the case with him, and so when he's forced into those wide areas and he's facing speedy wingers with a lot of space, he can struggle in those areas as well. But when they're sitting deep, Kyrgios quite an effective defender, I feel. Tomiyasu's obviously good. The big problem with him is he's been having a lot of injuries ever since he joined Arsenal. He's quite a good defensive fullback. I feel like the problem with Tomiyasu is on the ball, you can pressure him and he can give the ball away. Not in dangerous positions, but once you pressure him, he doesn't progress the ball that effectively, unlike someone like Zinchenko who does. So there's a bit of give and take with the left side of their defence, but definitely that's the biggest area you get at them, because a lot of the time when they're taking the game to you, they leave just two at the back with Saliba and Gabriel, and if you hit them quickly enough, there's a lot of space in the wide areas to feed into. So you got to be quick, you got to be direct, but you just got to hit those wide areas. That's the best way.
Absolutely. Let's go and look at the head-to-head between Spurs and Arsenal, which doesn't make for good reading recently. We did draw this year early on at the Emirates. They did do the double over us last year. The last time that we did beat them was that game, or that top four playoff, essentially, when we did beat them 3-0 under Conte. So judging by this, we owe them one, don't we?
Definitely. We always owe them one. There's never a time we don't owe them one, for sure. So, look, if we can get something out of this game, means we've gone unbeaten against them this season. So that's something to take as well, which would be nice. Our recent form has been great, but because last season they did do the double, and both games as well was really lackluster performances from Spurs. We didn't really show our best in either game. We went into those games with fear, I felt, in that last season. The one before that, especially the one where we won 3-0, we went into that game confident we could win that game. But after that, we did go wrong under Conte, and the whole team didn't look the same. They didn't look right, and we were just sitting back, waiting for teams to beat us, essentially. That's what it seemed like at that time. And Arsenal definitely didn't wait around. They went ahead and beat us quite comfortably. So we're going to have to right those wrongs from last season. But this season, I think playing with no fear could definitely help you in these bigger games. Having that mentality where if we lose playing our way, then that's fine. That can help you overcome that mental barrier of being scared of making a mistake, and that can hopefully mean that when we go into this game, we're not scared to play those risky passes. We're not scared to take on some of those Arsenal players, and that's the best way to kind of overcome them. Because we go into this game in fear of making a mistake, fear of what Arsenal can do. They're just going to beat us, and that's the reality. And
that brings me back to the point of the fans as well, right? Because if the fans come into this with a sense of apprehension, that will feed onto the pitch. It really will. So that means we, like I said before, we just need to be at it for 90 minutes, complete 90 minutes, or even longer than that, because we need to be at it before the game, after the game, with the celebrations after we do take the points. But if we come in, if the fans come into it with a mentality that we can win, and that seeps through from the stands onto the pitch, it will make those players seem about 10 feet tall, and that will even play into like, all right, we can win this game. We're going to be taking those risks. We're going to play the way we want to.
Definitely. I don't know if there's not going to be a tifo, is there?
Not that I know of.
Because there was talk about it before, but then I don't know if they changed their minds or if they reverse their decision. So it would be nice if there was one, because that could really get the crowd going early on, and that'll be a good spectacle. But we'll have to wait and see. But 100%, the fans have to be at their loudest from minute one, and that can make a big difference.
In terms of Arsenal's team, though, in terms of their injuries and maybe what they've got coming into it, they've got Juri and Timber, actually, because Arteta said he could be actually included in this one. He's going to have a late fitness test. He has been playing for the under-21, scored an absolute worldie. But no, they haven't really had many injury problems this season, have they, Arsenal?
Yeah, they've been extremely lucky. We could call it luck. I don't know what you call it. Other teams, pretty much every other team, apart from Arsenal and City, have had really bad injury problems throughout the whole season.
I mean, City have had De Bruyne out for a long stretch, but it doesn't really hurt them.
Yeah, true. That's also a good fact. But Arsenal, I can't remember apart from Jesus, I can't remember too many major injuries they've had this season, to be honest. So they've had a lot of luck on that regard, and they come into this with pretty much a clean bill of health that they've had for most of the season. If you look at that team, it's a very strong team, and it's going to be very difficult to compete with. Rice has found a new role, obviously, in that number. We can play the 6 or the 8, but in that number 8 position, he's become not very effective, especially he's got confidence to go forward and take shots and be aggressive, and that's going to be a worry as well. If he's in the number 6 position, the amount of ground he can cover, and how defensively aware he is, and the way he can carry the ball, he's extremely effective. So stopping Declan Rice having influence in this game is going to be crucial.
Yeah, Martin Odegaard as well, who's really Like, we all know what a good player Martin Odegaard is. He's their captain, he's their leader, he leads their press. But first half of the season, I didn't think he really had a good half of the season. But since January hit, he's been phenomenal, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's turned it on. Not only is he be getting like more regular goals and assists, but it's just general play. He never loses the ball. He always knows what he's doing. It seems like he knows, he has a picture in his mind of what he wants to do before he collects the ball. And you think he picks up the ball in a situation where you think, oh, he's going to lose it here, and he ends up just wriggling out of it somehow. He's a marvellous player, Martin Odegaard. The only thing I would say compared to him and Maddison a lot of the time is Odegaard is very one-footed, whereas Maddison's a bit more two-footed, and hopefully that can help him in certain other situations. Maddison obviously hasn't been able to recapture the form he had in the earlier parts of the season, unfortunately. Hopefully this can be the game where that turns around. But it's interesting, you know, Odegaard didn't have the best start didn't have the best start to the season and has had a great 2020 second half. Maddison had a great first half and not a great second half, but timing's all about how you see who's having a good season or not, isn't it, a lot of the time?
Yeah, I do think, like, here and now Odegaard has had the better season than Maddison. I really believe that, as much as it hurts me to say. Another player who I want to talk about in the Arsenal team is Bukayo Saka, because we all know that he's been the danger man for the last couple of years, if not more, for Arsenal. Still at a very young age. I think he's, 21, 22, which is crazy to think about. It feels like he's been around forever, Bukayo Saka. But the way I look at Saka is, I think, like, between... I think it was January to the end of February, he was in unbelievable red-hot form, scoring multiple goals, laying on assists countless amount of times. But I actually don't think, as a season as a whole, he's had such a strong season.
Yeah, it was a weird one. I felt like in the early parts of the season, he wasn't playing well, but he kept scoring and getting a penalty here and just finding a moment where he could be effective. And to be fair, that's what good players do when they're not playing well. They find moments where they just can show their quality, and that's what he was doing. So he kept his numbers up, albeit his overall performances weren't at the best. Then he did go through a spell, as you say, where he was absolutely devastating. Teams couldn't handle him, and he was getting goals and assists for fun, and he was completely tearing teams to shreds. But recently, I don't know whether he's being overplayed or what's happening, but he definitely doesn't seem at his sharpest. He definitely seems a bit less effective. His XG might be low, but his expected limps definitely high, that's for sure. He's been limping a lot at the end of games. It is a classic staple now for Saka. Whenever he has a poor game, he just limps at the end, say, oh, you know, I've been injured. I'm injured at this game, so I didn't play well, which is quite funny. But look, he's still a great player. He's still learning, isn't he? Obviously, he's now come up with a different problem where teams are targeting him a bit more. They're doubling up against him. They're realising he's a threat, and he's got to overcome that. And to be fair to him, he's dealing with it fairly well, even though he's maybe being less effective. He's still coming up with moments of quality to make the difference. So I think it's all a learning curve for a player like Saka at his age. He hasn't been as effective in recent weeks. I'd also think they rely way too much on him. But I think the fact that he's still up there with the numbers shows his quality. Yeah, and hopefully we'll be seeing some more Saka limps at the end of the game on Sunday. But yeah, someone said in the comment, Limpayo Saka, that's his new name. But he's going to be hard to deal with. And with Destiny Udogie being out, that's even bigger cause for concern, isn't it? The fact that Udogie, he dealt with him fairly well for a large part of the game of the Emirates, and now Davis is going to be up against him. Obviously, Davis being a very experienced defender, hopefully he can deal with that situation, but it's going to be very, very difficult because Davis, you know, he's wrong side of 30 now. Saka's just young, exuberant. He's got the legs on Davis. So, and if Davis is quite out of position, it's going to be very, very difficult to deal with that situation. I just hope that Davis is smart enough not to let himself get caught in those situations. Yeah, let's hope so. So we're going to get into tactics board in a minute. Just before we do, we have given our predictions, and I have said 2-2. Sim has said 2-1 to Tottenham. So let's hope. Like I said before, it's all about the fans, man. We have to brutalise them for 90 minutes, and if we do that, it increases the percentages of Spurs taking home something from this game massively.